knows, like, they don't really like same-as-side foreigners, but because I'm wearing a mask, she didn't notice to begin with. So she literally just got nearly like maybe one step away from sitting down and just noticed I was a foreigner. And she did the biggest U-turn.
The
She
board.
did,
Yeah.
exactly there. Like, she did the biggest U-turn. Like, I don't know how she didn't like twist her back or something, or like it was like.
Okay, moving on to the next topic. It's the one that I selected today. It's is it easier for white Westerner guys, foreigners, to pick up girls in Korea? How is it easy to meet Korean girls? And the reason why I chose this is I saw recently on Reddit a post about, there's a Korean guy who makes like short movies on YouTube, and he's like talking about different like society problems. And so in this short movie, there's like a Westerner coming to Korea, and he's like getting a English teacher job, and for him it's so easy to meet Korean girls. And in that short movie, there's actually another guy. I don't know where he's from, but he's not white.
Yeah.
And he has like a total different like Korean experience. So for the white guy, everything is easy, like not only picking up girls, but like getting a good job, and life is so easy. Like everyone like gives him like service at the restaurant, but not the other guy. So anyway, I don't know how much of that is true or not. And like foreigners were like super mad about this short movie. Anyway, it's just a short movie, so who cares? Whatever. I'm not gonna talk about this, but yeah, it gave me the idea to talk about whether it's really easy for a Westerner to live in Korea, and especially meeting up girls.
I think it probably just, like, all of us obviously aren't in the dating world anymore. So our experience being in Korea, if we dated here, would have been a bit out of date by now, but probably still relevant. I think it probably seems easier. Like if you think about that white guy back in at home, if he's from the US or England or Europe, somewhere in Europe, he's just one of many white guys. And so he may not feel like he's the most handsome, the most smooth, like, so it might feel really difficult. And coming to Korea is like, he's now super unique, right? Like he's one of the white guys. Like there's not that many white people in Korea. And I think it probably might seem easier to that person, because like there's probably a small subset of Korean girls who like foreign guys. And so they might seem like, oh, I get all this interest, but it might only be from a really small pocket of Korean girls. But to him, it seems like every weekend I go to a bar and there's a Korean girl interested in me. But I don't know.
There's also a big misunderstanding on, like a lot of, I think, foreigners who are outsider in their own country, they come to Korea and they think they're going to be super popular. And they are at some levels. Like everyone would tell you, even if you're not really handsome, a lot of people would say, oh, you're so handsome because you just look different and exotic. But truth is, like you said, it's a really small percentage of women maybe wanting to be with foreigners, but it's easier for those girls to find foreigners because they know where to find them.
That's a good point, right? There's like the foreign bars where if I'm out in San Francisco, every bar is equally difficult to meet a girl, because everyone's just someone in San Francisco there hanging out, even if they're from another country. In Korea, you have like neighborhoods and specific bars that are foreign bars. So you almost know like any Korean girls at that bar are probably there to meet foreigners. And so it's almost like, it's like they're herding you to certain bars where like, if you go to a random bar that's not a foreign bar, you're not going to have the same experience of like, oh, it's so easy to just go up and talk to girls. Like if you just go to a random bar with Koreans in it, it's going to be impossible. Like you're going to walk up to a random table and say like, because I think even the bar culture is different, right? Like I think a lot of Korean drinking, Korean friends drinking together, they go as a friend group
they don't
to a
mix.
bar and they hang out with their friends. The Western bars are like designed for like how Western people drink, talking to strangers and mingling. And so I think some people might have a skewed view of like, oh, I was there for 3 years teaching and we always went to these bars and we always met girls. I mean, you were going to a very specific type of bar.
Yeah, a lot of those like real Korean bar, they're like rooms, like separated, and it's like, you don't even get to talk to other people, or you don't interact with them so much.
Yeah, if you go to like a club back home, like you see people hooking up all the time, like you just see people. But like if you go to a club in Korea, like you know, it's you don't really see it at all. People,
People go
yeah,
with friends to hang out with friends.
yeah, and like,
Not only, but
well, no,
I mean,
you do see it, but I mean, you go to a club in like Newcastle, like it's
in
totally
America,
different.
too, I think like friend groups go to clubs, and within 10 minutes, it's like they shatter and just all go off to talk to strangers. And I think you don't have as like, it's almost like the group knows we're all going, like, we'll meet back here in 8 hours. Like, everyone go and do your thing.
Carnage in the US.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah. But I think, I mean, clearly, like we said, it's probably a lot easier for foreigners to pick up girls if they want to, because those girls, they also want the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like this,
We're both at this bar. We both know why we're at this
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah.
but there's a big misconception from a lot of Koreans. And I think, like, I'm a bar owner and I work here, and like a lot of people tell me, oh, you must get hit on by a lot of girls as a bartender.
I
And
don't know who says that. Who says that?
customer coming here. My
It's shady in here. That shade getting thrown wrong direction.
he didn't even start drinking yet. Can you imagine how he is after a few drinks?
What do you say though when they say, is it not true, right? Like,
No, it's not true at all. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I think there's what people say as a bartender in any countries. Usually, you get a lot of phone numbers
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Never got any.
Yeah.
no. Well, because the kind of place you're too, right? It's like the
Right.
kind of bar like friends come to drink, and like it's like not like in the US. I think any place there's alcohol, people will try to hit on people, and I think in Korea it's kind of like the
Right.
appropriate place that you go to hit on people. You don't just like approach people in like a pocha, or maybe you do. I don't know what a pocha is, but in like a bar like this is like you go with friends, you go with like coworkers, and you mingle and like with each other, not just approaching. It would be so weird, right? If you saw, like, as a bar owner, how often do you see like two guys at one table, two girls at another, and like they randomly approach them? Probably never, right?
Right.
Like it's not the vibe.
I think like if you're the type of guy who wants to come here and like kind of your whole purpose is just to hook up with girls, and like I think a lot of them, the way they do it is obviously you can't go to, like we were saying, you can't go to a club and do it. They'll like take advantage of the personalities of Koreans. You know, like most people just want a relationship. They don't really want to just be hooking up. It's got a negative.
It's a much more conservative
yeah,
culture in general.
yeah.
Like people a lot of times don't kiss before they start dating.
Right.
They live at home until they get married. Like it's a very
Yeah.
different approach, I think, to like interpersonal
Exactly.
relationships.
So I think like people who maybe like who that guy, I'm just assuming what that guy was talking about was probably guys who know how to like take advantage of a women's they just know how women work, and like especially, and they probably like promise all these things like, oh, let's a relationship, and then just like after like whatever they just
Yeah,
disappear
sure.
and stuff. So.
Yeah.
I mean, there are clearly this small amount of girls who are after foreigners and one night stand, and they're like they've traveled abroad, and they know that the foreigners, I mean, or at least they have this misconception of foreigners being more open-minded
Yeah.
and
Right,
more
right,
open to
right,
one
yeah.
night stand, and like, oh, it's my opportunity
Yeah.
with a foreigner to be myself or
Yeah.
who they want to be. But that's a very small percentage.
Yeah.
And like you said, most of the girls, I don't think they really want the one night stand culture is not
No.
really big in
Right.
Korea. Or any, if you do,
Yeah.
you're a complete
Yeah.
slut.
Well, that's the thing too. I'm guessing too that there's the idea too, right? That if you
One way to put it.
No, I'm guessing that too, though, for girls that, like you said, maybe they traveled, studied abroad, and like have a more progressive view on a one night stand. The foreign community is an easy place to be like, oh, I can do that there, and it's
Yeah.
never gonna get back
Yeah,
to
yeah.
my own like coworkers and stuff, because
True.
it's like its own little isolated
Yeah.
world. The foreign English teaching community, there's
Right.
such a low chance of like mutual friends hearing that girl did this, because like, yeah. And then the other thing is like what I've heard now, like we were all probably married by the time this came out, but it's like Tinder. Like
Yeah.
I've heard that in Korea, like, oh, people say it's so easy. You have to think about it's a Western dating app. It probably is easy because the Korean girls who choose to be on Tinder, like know why they're on Tinder.
Right.
So to a foreigner, it might seem like, oh, it's so easy. But it's like, because if you're in your own country on Tinder, you're navigating it like with every other person there on Tinder. Here, you're like this tiny group of foreigners on Tinder. There's a tiny group of Korean girls who know if I want to find a foreigner, I go on Tinder. So
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, you're right.
But
Yeah,
abroad, I mean, in America or Europe, if you go on Tinder, you'll find multitude. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
everyone are on
yeah.
the same app.
yeah.
And to be honest with you, in my opinion, like it's such a, like we're saying, it's such a small fraction. I think like majority of Koreans are pretty much, they don't hate us. But there's they're like they would never ever think about dating a foreigner. Like,
That was what I was gonna say before. I think there's like a small amount of women who are really attracted to foreigners, and
it's
that
definitely
are
a type thing.
the crazy ones, and the other type.
Yeah.
And they're the opposite, where they actually really don't want to be with a foreigner.
Yeah. Well, taking a step back from like where I am in life, right? When I first came to Korea, going to clubs and stuff, and now the occasional time I'll walk through Hongdae at midnight or like and see the club lines or the bar lines of like the foreign bars with the Korean girls there, it does seem so different, like such a different type of personality than the normal quote normal Korean people that I hang out with my wife, where it's like, oh, this is like totally its own little world. Like these bars here, this is so different from like when we go out drinking at a restaurant or something in our neighborhood with like some friends who just live in our neighborhood. The vibe in like those certain neighborhoods where like the foreigners go out, and let's be honest, like it also makes me now more and more cringy, like embarrassed, like the way the 24, 22-year-old
I
like
think it's just 'cause you're
American
old.
English teachers act though. I'm just like, I'm so embarrassed to be like, because we all kind of get lumped together. Like there's not that many foreigners, and the majority of foreigners here are like young partiers, and I'm just like, oh my god, like to your point, like a lot of them would never think of date. It's like I don't blame a lot of people for hating and not wanting to ever talk to or date a foreigner, because like it's so like against the grain of how most of Korean society acts. But it's like it's so embarrassing.
That could be a really whole topic.
But I mean, for like that's where it's like that type of personality in this way. It's like you said, certain girls are like they know they want that, and so it's not hard to find that, because you're like, oh, that's where they are. The super loud, obnoxious Americans running around, or Europeans, or whoever they are.
So it become easy in that sense.
Yeah, you throw a flag up saying, I'm here. Whoever wants to come talk to me, come.
Right.
And the girls who are interested know where to come find you.
Yeah.
Where in your own country that doesn't happen. Like everyone's just mixed together.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just to finish on, I want to give like an example of like the reason why it's just like I say, all a type thing, and like some people like foreigners, some don't. Is like the other day I was on the subway, and like there was one chair open beside me, and in front of me there was one chair open beside someone else, so two available chairs. And this like Ajima got on the train, right? And everyone knows like, you know, they don't really like same beside foreigners, but because I'm wearing a mask, you know, she didn't notice to begin with. So she literally just got nearly like maybe one step away from sitting down and just noticed I was a foreigner. And she did the biggest U-turn.
Abort.
Yeah. Exactly there. Like, she did the biggest U-turn. Like, I don't know how she didn't like twist her back or something, or like, it was brilliant.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, yeah.
But then the thing is, she had to go and sit right in front of me. So she was just looking right at me. And I was thinking, that's maybe worse. You're going to look at me now.
I know. That's like, again, that could be a whole other topic, though, like micro, I don't want to say racism, but like I noticed that too, where I'll be like, there's two seats, and I'll like the other bench will fill up so much faster. It doesn't bother me, but I'm always like, one time it was like a drunk Ajashi in the other seat. I'm like, come on. Like I'm watching someone walk up to the two seats. I'm like, pick me. Like I'm better to sit next to than that guy who's literally just passed out in his seat. I was like, nope, they still sit next to the drunk Ajashi.
Yeah, that's what I just kind of wanted to say, really. Like, you know, just because you're like a foreigner coming and say, yeah, like doesn't mean you're friggin' some king and all this shit. You know what I mean? It's just like just natural. People have types. People, you know, there's nothing special about them.
Yeah, to me, not only talking about dating and men and women, but like anyone, like any Korean, like acting toward, like it's either like repulsion almost, or like adoration, or but like but what I like the most is when people act like completely indifferent.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I was gonna say I don't like both extremes. I don't like it when people have been too nice to me because I'm a foreigner, too freaking like the opposite.
So at work, when someone treat me exactly like they would treat any other Koreans, it's like I like those people usually.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Great.